Many of us have never heard about the 2015 Kigali Principles. The Global South should unite at the United Nations General Assembly with the famous Kigali Principles in hand. This is an international instrument introduced by His Excellency Paul Kagame of Rwanda back in 2015, and which should now be invoked to protect the Palestinian people. This international instrument already authorizes action that any country can take right now for the Palestinian people. The 18 principles uphold the universal responsibility to protect civilians, known as R2P. It was specifically designed for countries to take prompt action to stop the mass slaughter of civilians anywhere in the world. And most of all, it was designed so that the world would never again watch for 100 days as civilians are being murdered and do nothing to actually stop the madness. So here are the principles. 1. Train all troops anywhere around the world on the protection of civilians. Number 2, to ensure that peacekeeping contingents have a high level of training and preparedness on peacekeeping operations and in particular the protection of civilians. Number 3, to be prepared to use force to protect civilians as necessary and consistent with the mandate. Such action encompasses making a show of force as a deterrent, interpositioning peacekeeping forces between armed actors and civilians, and taking direct military action against armed actors with clear hostile intent to harm civilians. Number 4, not to stipulate caveats or other restrictions that prevent us, the international community, from fulfilling its responsibility to protect civilians in accordance with its mandate. Number 5, to identify and communicate to the United Nations any resource and capability gaps that inhibit the international community's ability to protect civilians. To strive within the international community's capabilities to contribute to the enabling military capabilities to peacekeeping operations that facilitate improved civilian protection. To avoid undue delay in protecting civilians by investing the international community's contingents with the authority to use force to protect civilians in urgent situations without the need for further consultations. Not to hesitate to take action to protect civilians in accordance with the rules of engagement in the absence of an effective host government's response or demonstrated willingness to carry out its responsibilities to protect civilians. To have clarity on rules of engagement, including under which circumstances the use of force is appropriate. To seek to identify as early as possible potential threats to civilians and proactively take steps to mitigate such threats and otherwise reduce the vulnerability of the civilian population. To seek to enhance the arrangements for rapid deployment, including by supporting a full review of the United Nations standby arrangements, exploring a system in which earmarked units from troop contributing countries could be placed in readiness in order to ensure rapid troop deployment, and encouraging the utilization of partnerships with regional organizations. To be vigilant in monitoring and reporting any human rights abuses or signs of impending violence in the areas in which international personnel are serving. To take disciplinary action against the international community's own personnel if and when they fail to act to protect civilians when circumstances warrant such action. To undertake review in parallel to any after-action review in the event that international personnel are unable to protect civilians, and identify and share key lessons for avoiding such failures in the future. To hold personnel to the highest standards of conduct and to vigorously investigate and where appropriate prosecute any incidents of abuse. To better implement protection of civilians' mandates and deliver in the international community's responsibilities. To ensure that mandates are matched with the requisite resources and to commit to support a process that addresses critical resource gaps in missions. Noting that any well-planned mandates implementation may be undermined by inefficient mobility, logistics, or support. So to call for effective support of all military plans, including contingency plans. Now, in addition to what is going on against the Palestinian people right now as we speak, let us know that the people next in danger of extermination in the Middle East after the Palestinians will be the Syrians, then the Lebanese, then the Iranians, the Jordanians, then the Iraqis, the Egyptians, the Yemenis, the Saudis, and other Gulf states. This was clear in the expansionist Zionist map of the infamous Greater Israel, which was recently displayed in front of the entire United Nations General Assembly. Basically, anyone on this planet who thinks that they are being very smart by defending Zionism is actually no different than the delusional person who keeps an alligator as a pet. It's just a matter of time before it turns against you in a vicious death roll. In conclusion, let me repeat here that the 2015 Kigali Principles were designed so that the world would never again watch for 100 days as civilians are being murdered and do nothing to actually stop that madness, as was the case during the heinous tragedy of the 1994 Rwanda genocide. The only difference here is that in this instance, the conflict is one instigated by colonialism. European colonialists who want to enforce their will on the indigenous people like they once did to Africans as well, under the cover of religion. They should just go back to their peaceful ancestral home countries in Europe and leave the Palestinian people alone. Thank you.